Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is July 15th, 2014. This is a live broadcast. It's Tuesday. I'm Doug Hagmann, along with my co-host, my son, fellow investigator Joe Hagmann. Together, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news, information, and analysis. Tonight's show, folks, is going to be very heavy on the news. A lot of news to get through, a lot of hot spots, a lot of things to talk about. Folks, you're listening to the only show where the news itself is presented to you in 3D. We look at all angles, we look at all sources, we look at all perspectives, we look well beyond the headlines, the bylines, and bring you the news behind the news. For new listeners, thank you for tuning in. Received many emails here over the last 48 hours. As a consequence, in part, I want to thank John B. Wells for his invitation for me, allowing me to be on the Caravan at Midnight. A lot of new listeners to the show. For those of you just tuning in because of that broadcast, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. Thank you so much, Troy. There, you can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. That's the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. You have to spell that whole thing out. 2 N's, by the way, on Hagmann. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your belief and your trust in us, each and every one of you. And as I say this often, each and every one of you were meant to be alive at this very moment in time, at this very day, at this very hour. You all have a job to do. I believe we all have a job to do, and we need to do it together. We are running out of time, folks. I can feel it. I can feel it in my heart. We're running out of time, and we can't afford to squander time. It's interesting how we can make excuses. We can say, well, I just have this to do and that to do, and of course we all have things to do. But in terms of getting the news out there and getting prepared personally, as well as helping others in that regard, sharing information, look, we have a limited amount of time. We have a finite amount of time, and sometimes, whether it's God calling us home personally, or whether it will result from some other event, we have to be aware that we don't have all of the time in the world. Opening up tonight's broadcast, I want to a couple of things here in the news that need to be really talked about first. One thing I had written about this. In fact, Steve Quayle and I had written about this in 2004, and then again in 2005. And for our warnings about this, we were called alarmists. In fact, one person had said, or not one person, one entity said, prove it. Prove what you're saying. Well, folks, now the proof is out there, and of course, our warnings, basically a decade later, have really been borne out. This full-scale invasion along the southern border, it's more than merely illegal alien children and gangbangers. I'm going to tell you that flat out. The one Texas rancher found an Urdu dictionary, also Qurans. Yes, that's correct. Urdu to English dictionary was found by rancher Mike Vickers, and he has a cattle ranch with electrified fencing around his 1,000-acre ranch in Texas. And outside of that fencing, he found, of course, this Urdu to English dictionary. Also found were Qurans, and I will say this, along that same area, or within that same area, military patches from the, I shouldn't say military, Al-Qaeda type of documentation and patches were found, clothing patches were found as well, and have been found. In fact, they've been found, and people have been finding these types of items now for the last decade. Now, of course, it's coming out in the mainstream media, and perhaps people will listen. Perhaps they'll listen now. We've been telling you that there has been this influx of other than Mexicans coming across the border, and it's incredible. People have said, well, if there's no pictures, then of course it can't. Folks, got to tell you, there are photographs now making their way throughout the mainstream media of these various items, and of course, the Border Patrol, Texas Border Patrol in particular, they're not allowed to authorized to speak publicly. Of course not in the regime led by the renegade in chief. No one's allowed to speak publicly. Isn't that the truth? And I'm sure there'll be people out there that will cry foul because people are not allowed to speak publicly, and therefore it can't be true if they can't speak publicly. If you sense sarcasm and frustration in my voice, well, you're very perceptive. But folks, that's what's going on. Another thing, and then mainstream or more news after this. I just want to say that if you have submitted a password, or if you created an account at CNET, you better be changing your password. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you don't have to worry about this. But the latest news is coming from CNET website. That is C like Charlie, N-E-T, CNET website. It was hacked by a Russian hacker, ostensibly. And the Russian hacker boasted on Twitter under the name of W0RM or Worm. CNET confirmed that they were hacked yesterday. It's a popular news and reviews website. Millions of users have been affected by this hack, and the CNET database was accessed by a Russian. This by CNET. So if you are one of those people, and there are actually screenshots that were posted via Twitter to show that the system is compromised. So if in fact you've been a part of that, 1 million emails, usernames, and encrypted passwords, well, definitely change your password. Isn't that interesting? Doing business on the internet does have its hazards. Of course, this week we are, over the next several days, folks, this week or within the next several days, we mark the anniversary of the homicide of Vince Foster. We also mark the anniversary of the downing of TWA Flight 800. Keep those in mind. And a little bit of housekeeping here. Thursday, Nathan Leal will be on our program, and Friday, Catherine Austin Fitz. With that, we'll bring Joe on. Joe, go ahead and take the news.
Yeah, glad to be here. Yesterday, we had Butter Dezillion on. I saw the story of the dictionary being found on the farmer or rancher's property where he had an electrical fence, and I had to read into a little bit to understand better what exactly that was. But as Fox News and many other agencies are reporting, almost as a matter of fact, instead of with concern or with alarming, sounding the alarm, is that it's not just children that are crossing the border. You have Middle Eastern men, Chinese, all these different types of races and kinds of people that are coming over, and it's not just the as they are saying, these poor parentless children that are reaching here. It is many different types of people with many different agendas and reasons for why they're coming. We now have what the Department of Homeland Security is doing, and this is interesting because, folks, I know local towns and municipalities, we've been following how the treatment of homeless people have been lately. And you see different counties from California to Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, banning feeding homeless people. They started to even organizations that would set up places in public parks to feed people, like on Saturdays. I remember there was a story from Florida where this one church group set up every Saturday tables and they bring their own prepared food, and they would feed as many homeless people as they could, and then they started to get shut down by police. Well, now you have the Department of Homeland Security actually getting the church involved, the church that they deem as terrorist or domestic extremism, to get in and to help aid and embed these and feed these illegal aliens that are coming across the border. And not only that, they're saying that they'll reimburse them for their troubles, even though they're violating many laws in doing so, and actually asking the churches, the Department of Homeland Security asking the churches to do this is a violation of many laws. Getting into, I don't know if you saw this today, Dad, but what happened in Maryland with the Maryland State Police. There was anti-immigration graffiti found at an Army Reserve Center in Westminster County. Well, the police are investigating this as a hate crime. Maryland State Police have classified anti-immigration graffiti spray painted July 13, 2014 on the former Army Reserve Center in Westminster, Maryland as a hate crime. The facility recently became embroiled in controversy when the Obama administration considered using it to house immigrant children caught crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally. Maryland State Police have classified this spray as a hate crime. This by Christian Alexander, a Times staff writer. The graffiti was sprayed sometime between Saturday and Sunday night. According to Lieutenant Patrick McCrory, commander of the State Police Westminster Barracks, the graffiti said, "No illegals here, no undocumented Democrats." It was spray painted on the front of the Army Reserve Center, which recently became under the controversy due to the Obama administration wanting to use the facility to house immigrant children. The Carroll County Board of Commissioners spoke out against the federal government's plan on Friday. During an emergency cabinet meeting, commissioners attended the meeting, pledging not to provide any assistance to federal agencies if or when they moved the children to the facility. By Saturday, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services told local officials that a 3.8-acre vacant facility would not be used as a shelter for immigrant children. State police that began their investigation into the graffiti after it was discovered Sunday morning. They said they do not have any suspects or witnesses that have come forward, but it is still early in the investigation. So here we have not an investigation into the administration for their breaking the law in so many different ways.
They are trafficking in children across state lines and across international borders, plain and simple. But the children, folks, is a distraction. Much like diplomatic security with respect to Benghazi is a foil, it's a ruse, it's a red herring. The children coming across is not, that's not the issue. You talk about the children coming across the border, and you put your emphasis, your focus, your attention onto the children. What you are doing, ladies and gentlemen, is you are not addressing the real issue. The real issue is the erosion of the intentional erosion or the destruction of the border, and you're also missing the point that we've got some very dangerous people and adults, not just children, but adults coming across the border, including armed adults and weapons and people that are intended to do us harm. And of course, people will say, "Well, prove it." Well, look, all you have to do is look at the surveillance videos from the border to understand that this is exactly what's happening.
And we're going to jump around a little bit here between the border and to Benghazi and back to the Middle East with ISIL, ISIS. I don't know if you saw this headline either. ISIL or ISIS.
I refuse to
you're
call
going to say it ISIS. You're going to say ISIS.
ISIS. It is ISIS. If you call this program, and it must be ISIS. ISIS. I will not accept ISIL. It's really that as well is a neuro-linguistic attempt to change the focus away from Syria, because Syria, ladies and gentlemen, is all and has been and will always be the goal here, and that is it's the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, not Levant, but Syria. That's the key. So if you're going to talk about ISIS or ISIL, reference it as ISIS.
All right. Well, in ISIS, this from the Washington Times, ISIS captured 52 U.S.-made howitzers, artillery weapons, at a cost of $500,000 each.
They didn't capture. All they did was, it's akin to the entire, or I shouldn't say the entire, a platoon of military personnel parking their equipment at a 7-Eleven, leaving the keys in it, putting up a sign saying, ISIS, take me, free, and then walking away. And Kerry, over the New Year's, saying, oh, by the way, if you do happen to take that, we're not going to really bother with you. So have at it.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Benghazi. I want to play a clip. I don't know if you saw this about Eric Holder, what he said about Benghazi and the capture of the person that they're alleging is responsible for it. But Holder said that the Benghazi terror suspect, and the reason he's in civilian trial, it's time for us to get beyond Benghazi. Here's a quick 1.5 minute clip.
Split from them, have become strong. The administration recently scored a victory in the war on terror with the capture of Ahmed Abu Khattala, one of the alleged planners of the assault on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that killed U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans. But even that has not been without controversy. Critics have said it took too long to get him. He was having lunch in public, being interviewed by journalists. What say you to that? Well, I think, that is really an argument I simply don't understand. It's one thing to talk to a reporter and have your face not even shown on camera while you're doing this. A whole other thing to come to the custody of the FBI, the United States military. I don't think that he would have had a cup of coffee with a couple of FBI agents or members of our military. He's now being held in the U.S. under tight security, facing trial in federal court in Washington. Well, a number of Republicans on the Hill said he should still be in interrogation on a ship somewhere, military ship. Intelligence should be the priority, and that he should be headed to a military court, not civilian court. There is not a tension between the way in which we have done this and getting intelligence that can be useful, and then ultimately convicting this person. I think it's time for us to get beyond this point. Now it has become something that I think is purely political and is totally inconsistent with the facts. The job of national security.
All right. All of that is a lie. Period. Holder is absolutely lying. Khattala, look, they knew exactly where Khattala was. The trial of Khattala is, again, it's to take people's eyes away from the real issue. The real issue is the gun running operation, the training of personnel by our CIA, by our intelligence assets in and around Benghazi. And oh, by the way, let's look at Mr. Khattala a little bit. Who is Mr. Khattala? Was he under the radar? Was he hiding? Was he not so easy to find as Holder states? Of course not. You've had journalists come right out and say that they had coffee and tea with him at his residence. Folks, we knew where he lived. As a matter of fact, look, folks, there were training compounds in and around Benghazi, near the annex, near the villa, and Ansar al-Sharia was involved in this. Of course, Khattala is associated with that organization. And, this is not a very popular subject. I'm going to tell you right now, there are people, and you're going to have to read between the lines, ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you this. There are people that are seemingly on the side of truth. Now, I really, really, please understand this. There are people who are seemingly attempting to show, we're going to get to the bottom of Benghazi. We are going to tell the truth. We are going to hold people accountable for Benghazi. But ladies and gentlemen, it's not true, because the the conversation circles back to the various elements that are not important to or not critical to Benghazi itself. For example, if you hear anyone on our side, we can expect this from the communist, progressive, Muslim Marxist renegade in chief and his renegades. We can expect this talk. But if you hear this talk from our side, you know that they have been compromised, they have been limited to what they can say, they have been put in a box, restrained, or otherwise being disingenuous. If you hear them say, for example, that Katala was that there was a manhunt for Katala and his capture was just absolutely critical. Not true. They knew exactly where Katala was following 9/11. If there is no discussion about on whose payroll Katala was, if there's an aversion to that, who paid Katala? If there's a lack of discussion about his profession as a contractor in and around Benghazi, I'm talking about a builder contractor now, in addition to being a subcontractor as well, a subcontractor for the intelligence services, but refusing to deal with his position as a contractor, then you know that there's disingenuous intent here, or lack of intent for the truth. If, again, circling back to the words diplomatic security, if that phrase, diplomatic security, rolls out of the mouth of any supposed person attempting to seek the truth about Benghazi, they're being disingenuous, because it had nothing to do with diplomatic security. Period. Nothing to do. The diplomatic security was Tripoli, not Benghazi. If there is no mention of the Iranian involvement in the attack at the CIA compound and annex in Benghazi, and Ansar al-Sharia, their presence, if you, and you're going to hear this, folks, I guarantee you, whether it's on Fox News or whether it's, you're going to hear this. This has not been substantiated. It's because the investigation is not broad enough. It's because the investigation is being contained. And I've been in a case, one case in my life, where my hands were tied in an investigation. And let me tell you something. It's not the way to play. That's not the way to work. Never. Never, ever get to the truth of the matter. And we're being prevented from getting to the truth of the matter here. Look, the progressive communist Marxist liberals who, such as the Ayers Dorn team, the Valerie Jarretts, the Hillary Rodham Clintons, the Bill Clintons, all of these people, and the people behind those people, they are the ones who are spreading the disinformation and telling us to look at the shiny little trinket and not pay attention to the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the CIA weapons running operation out of Benghazi. It's the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of tons of weapons out of Benghazi and Derna and other places in northern Libya. It's the training of personnel by our own CIA operatives or CIA forces, CIA army, if you will. It's the chemical weapons. And you know, you're going to hear this too. Well, it's all mustard gas. Libyan made in Libya by Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. Oh, really? Was that all it was? Because we won't talk about any VX gas. And if you do, well, you're going to be marginalized as a kook. This is all lies. Katala, part of a larger operation. Don't forget, his first statements were. Well, it was about a video. There was a protest there, but this was about a video. Do you think you're going to get the truth out of Katala and via the media, folks? You're sadly mistaken. If you think that right now that there are people broadcasting about this topic who are telling you the truth, there are people who are broadcasting about this topic who are getting their information from captive sources out of the CIA, who are telling the official narrative of the CIA and the State Department. Please understand what I just said. There are people broadcasting. There are broadcasters who you think you can trust, who are actually getting their information from CIA operatives who have been told this is what the story will be. Please understand what I'm saying. I hope I'm clear on that. You'll never get the truth from...
No, and it's something that's been going on now for as long as there has been broadcasts. There has been a takeover of the ability to send and give truthful research. We have just look at the government programs. You have the insider threat programs. Media leaks equal espionage. Truth equals espionage. U.S. military influence operations. Under this, they talk about how they're going to use influence operations in propaganda, counter-propaganda through books, strategic communications, public communications, news, social networking. I could read the list of the points they hit here, and we could spend the whole rest of the first hour on it. How they're using, warfare strategies and military doctrines in disseminating information. War of the words. Homeland security toward effective global influence. This is all talking about media influencing and strategies on how to do it. They have schools of training set up. This is, how we have different government agencies from the DHS to the USDA. This is a part of the United States military. Information operation training. And it has been, deception is the pillar and the reason of why they do this. And you can read quotes from different generals or commanders or presidents. Abraham Lincoln once said, public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. He who molds public sentiment goes deeper than he who enacts statutes or pronounces decisions. He who makes statutes or decisions possible or impossible to execute. General Douglas MacArthur. One cannot wage war under present conditions without the support of public opinion, which is tremendously molded by the press and other forms of propaganda. And it goes on and on.
If I can go back to Benghazi a little bit, because I think this is important, folks. John O. Brennan, the head of the CIA right now, had a big role in many covert black ops. But let's look at Benghazi, because this story, Benghazi itself, and people are, I'm sure they're thinking, well, I'm so tired of hearing about this, but you haven't heard the entire story, you haven't heard everything. The American public hasn't heard everything, and please, for those who have heard what I'm about to say, please have patience, because there are new listeners that haven't heard what I'm about to say. Because you see, in Benghazi, Stevens stayed at this gated villa. It was leased. Now you have to understand, this is simply like a house in a suburban area. In this gated villa, it was leased by the United States Department of State from a local man, from a man in Benghazi named Mohammed al-Bashari. Okay, that's who rented this property. Now, it may do the media well to look at what other properties are owned by Mohammed al-Bashari and who Mohammed al-Bashari leased other properties to, because just down the road from the villa, and I don't know if anybody ever on any public venue has ever said this before, but just down the road in a property owned by that very person, Mohammed al-Bashari, the property was leased by a member of Ansar al-Sharia. Don't forget, Ansar al-Sharia had a presence at the CIA Operations Center in Villa that was attacked where Stevens was staying. And I must reiterate, the villa in Benghazi, not a U.S. embassy, not a diplomatic mission, not an extension of the embassy, not an extension of any type of diplomatic facility whatsoever. In fact, the nearest and only U.S. embassy was in Tripoli, or is in Tripoli, which is about 600 miles away, west of Benghazi. The location where Stevens was really just a staging area, a villa in the shadow of a CIA operations center. Don't forget, Stevens had previously been designated as a special representative to the NTC, which was a de facto government in Libya that assisted our people in the overthrow of Gaddafi in 2011. So he had previously been, he came to Libya, Stevens came to Libya as a special representative to the very group, this de facto government that assisted us in overthrowing, ousting, and subsequently killing Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, which Hillary Rodham Clinton took such glee in. And of course, to really mask his role in Libya, Stevens was given this U.S. ambassador status by Hillary Rodham Clinton herself. And of course, he was stationed in Liberty. al-Bashari he confirmed via the BBC and other outside news agencies that Stevens would stay at that very location where he was killed when he met with the group, the de facto government in Libya, when he overthrew Gaddafi. That location in Benghazi was in part to gather intelligence for the CIA, conducting surveillance, collecting information, as well as assisting or providing cover for the CIA gun running, weapons running, arms trafficking operation across northern Libya. And please, ladies and gentlemen, before it is taken down or otherwise inaccessible, American Thinker, Building on a Kernel of Truth, that article, download it, save it to your computer, print it out. It's the American Thinker, Building on a Kernel of Truth, written by Michael Reagan. Trust me on this one. It has information in that article has information in there that is critical to understanding the bigger picture. And don't forget, on September 6th, just 5 days before Stevens was murdered and 3 others were murdered, this Libyan-flagged ship Al-Intisar, which means the victory, docked in the Turkish port, docked about 35 miles south of the Syrian border. And that Turkish, or that Libyan ship, the captain of that ship, Abdul Basit Haroun, he admits to being behind some of the biggest shipments of weapons from Libya to Syria, which he delivered to chartered flights to neighboring countries, smuggled over the border into Syria. And it's interesting to note, too, a number of journalists from from a number of other non-U.S. Media centers traveled with him as he did this. Libyan journalist Arish Saeed said that he was with Harun on the ship Al-Intisar when weapons were transferred. This is an article published by Reuters back in 2013. So, folks, the lie about this is huge. Please understand that there are people who are trying to downplay, trying to divert our attention from the fact that World War III was attempted, and they're still attempting World War III. It's still about Syria. It's all about Syria. It's all about taking out Assad.
Well, the White House today had a different message when asked what they were doing with their foreign policy and how they've improved it. And the answer was that they've improved the tranquility of the global community. Here's a quick sound clip of a White House spokesman answering I believe it was the ABC reporter's question.
The story basically says right at the top that, quote, U.S. global power seems increasingly tenuous to deal with all these challenges. So my question is, how does the White House react to the notion that the president is a bystander to all these crises?
I think that there have been a number of situations in which you've seen this administration intervene in a meaningful way that has substantially furthered American interests and substantially improved the tranquility of the global community.
Attorney General Eric Holder came out and he said that the inflow of Westerners into the civil war in Syria is, quote, the most frightening thing, more frightening than anything I have seen as Attorney General. You had the foreign policy experts in the Wall Street Journal talk about how this is instability not seen since the 1970s.
They're not exactly an impartial source, though.
A terrorist group. What's the front page of the Wall Street Journal? This was not a partisan. These were not just partisan foreign policy experts. I think that you see a wide range of people looking at basically an all-out war, what's looking like an all-out war in Israel and the Palestinian territories. You see the situation with the terrorist group taking over vast territory in Iraq and in Syria. You see Russian aggression in Ukraine. You see concerns about Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. It doesn't seem like a time to be touting tranquility on the international scene. I mean, do you think the president's foreign policy bears any responsibility for any of this, or there's anything that he can do about any of this?
I think what the president has been really clear about is that he will allow one core principle to guide his thinking about what we can do to advance U.S. interests in each of these hotspots that you've mentioned, and that's the national security interests of the United States of America. There is an important role for the United States to play. The U.S. influence continues to be important to resolving so many of the situations that you cite.
There you go, right from the spokesman of the White House. And as this is going on, we have our first Israeli death of Gaza operation as mortar shell kills a man at Erez Crossing. Don Chinan, 37-year-old man, killed at Erez Crossing. Rockets rained down on Israel, setting off sirens in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Belt after Hamas rejects ceasefire. There was an attempt by Israel to enter into an Egyptian-brokered ceasefire deal with Hamas that collapsed Tuesday when Gazan terrorists continued to fire rocket barrages on South Center and on the north. Over 105 rockets today were fired into Israel.
Yeah, that's from the Gaza. That's from Gaza, and according to the information we have from substantiated sources, or from well-known, known and trusted sources, there will be a ground offensive, and Israel, at an appropriate time, will overtake retake land, the Gaza Strip area, to expand their borders. Don't forget the lines were armistice lines. They were not. They're not anything but armistice lines from '67. People confuse these borders as being some sort of official edict when in fact they're nothing but armistice or lines of armistice that were a consequence of the 1967 war.
Yeah, so we have a peace deal that was attempted to be brokered by Egypt for a ceasefire today that was rejected by the Hamas terror cell or terror organization, and I see a lot of blame being placed on Israel as they retaliate from this rain of rockets that they are enduring daily. There's from the Jerusalem Post, you can find the article about the first death of the Gaza operation, and there's a short video showing the sirens blaring before rockets come in, and how we have international callers from Israel who I think last week there was a lady who told us how she had spent time multiple days during her work days in the bomb shelters. They're living in a constant state of alertness due to the amount of rockets that are being fired. Now, when retaliation comes, Hamas uses these, even though Israel gives warnings before they strike, Hamas will tell the civilians there to stay in their homes, to stay in the areas where they know the retaliatory rockets are going to be fired. Turkey's Erdogan called it the Israeli, defending their nation as a state of terror. And this is being misinterpreted based on political ideologies. And we see this happening over and over. This conflict has been going on for such a long time. And there was an article I read over the weekend in an actual newspaper. It talked about how Israel, when it was created again after the World War II, how it was loved by everybody, how everybody had compassion and just thought it was great. And now to see how the sentiment has turned, they say it's turned to pre-World War II sentiment, anti-Semitism, where people are in such an uptick in hating Israel and coming out and talking about genocide again, talking about removing any Jewish people from the face of the earth. And it's not just coming out of Iran. It's coming from Europe. It's coming from parts of the United States. And then this is a time where the United States government is at a historic low in backing them. I would say they are against them in their actions, the White House. So we're seeing Bible prophecy play out right before our eyes. We're seeing exactly what the Lord said would happen through the Bible, through His Word, and how Israel would be a burdensome stone, and they would be surrounded by enemies. Well, it looks as though the United States has had a big role in creating those enemies, or at least increasing the amount of enemies and the countries that become their enemies. We're on the wrong side of history as a nation right now. And this is a very dangerous place to be. You're muted.
Yeah, I thought I hit that button a little bit better. It's been sticking. Yes, we are on the wrong side of history. And of course, it was the end of December of 2008, before Obama's inauguration. I had an intelligence source tell me that we would not just abandon, but also find ourselves going against Israel. And of course, here we are 6 years later, almost, and that has essentially come to pass. And folks, look, I get emails from people who say, well, Israel, they criticize Israel. It's a Zionist. They call it a Zionist state in a very pejorative manner. They say, well, it's for example, a lot of people will talk about the Illuminati, the bankers, and equate that with the Jewish cabal, some sort of Jewish rooted in Judaism. There could be nothing further from the truth. So when you look at Israel and Zionism, you have to understand that Israel is, in fact, God's land, and those who toss around the word Zion or Zionist or attempt to criticize Israel for protecting themselves, they're not understanding, at least in my view, you're not understanding the difference between the globalists and the nation of Israel as God has given it to the Jews. You've got to understand there's a big difference.
And there's also a big difference between there are cabals out there that call themselves Jewish people that are behind the banking conglomerates. But the Bible tells us exactly times what these people are and who these people are. That there will be those that will call themselves Jews, but are not. They are the synagogue of Satan. And to blame a country's people, I mean, it would be like blaming the American people for all the different things, or we'll say war crimes the American government does in our name. But it's a misrepresentation. And it's not an easy topic to get into with somebody who's not a believer in Christ, because they don't take the biblical aspect as having any kind of credibility. And we see in today's world that there are less and less believers in the Lord. A huge amount of people from generation to generation continue to find other ways they believe, or other reasons, theories they think we're here. They think we're the Big Bang. We created ourselves. Aliens created us. Anything to not have to say that the Lord created us in the Bible was written, that is written, is the true word of God. They want to skirt around their responsibility to the Lord, even give up the free gift of salvation. They want to replace the 10 Commandments given to man by the Lord with 10 Commandments made by a UN, a universal man council, we'll say, men council. Everything is backwards, and it's moving at a faster pace.
Exactly. Folks, I don't know whether you saw this, kind of continuing along with what's going on in the Middle East. Did you happen to see this, where ISIS now claiming this state, this Islamic caliphate? Steve Quayle talked about it. We've talked about it before, the establishment of a caliphate in the Middle East. Well, now ISIS is issuing passports. According to Al Arabia, the state of the Islamic Caliphate appears to be inscribed on the top of the purported passport. Now, this was sent to Al Arabia and has been making its rounds on the Arabic language websites we've been monitoring, and it's got a lot of followers. There are a lot of people who are boasting that now they've got the Islamic Caliphate, especially on or within the Arabic language websites. If you want to know what they're talking about, this is one of the big things. The state of the Islamic Caliphate is inscribed at the top of this purported passport. It certainly looks official. We're not exactly certain of where this is coming from, but the terrorists, the members of ISIS, and the facilitators, which could very well mean even our Western intelligence services, of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Again, ISIS, it's not ISIL, it's not it's ISIS. They've circulated photographs of what they're claiming to be the passport of the so-called caliphate. Now, I first saw this last week, And I thought, nah, it was kind of a joke. And then it began. I saw it more and more, and then it was on Al Arabia, being reported on Al Arabia. According to members of ISIS, the new document will be distributed to 11,000 citizens living in cities that border Iraq and Syria. Now, ISIS, don't forget, they operate in both Iraq and Syria, said that their caliphate would spread from Aleppo, which is in the northern part of Syria, all the way in through eastern Iraq. It's being printed, by the way, supposedly anyway, and I haven't been able to verify this, but I certainly would think this to be true or consistent with the truth. This passport is being printed in a government-owned facility in Mosul. That was built in 2011 with your tax dollars, in part anyway. The facility has been identified, or has got a sign that says Identification and Passport Center. It was scheduled reportedly, or is scheduled reportedly, by the Maliki's government to begin issuing new ID cards next week. Now, the Iraqi media is reporting this. Last week, if you recall, ISIS leader Abu al-Baghdadi called on Muslims with military, medical, and managerial skills to, get busy, get over to the area where there's a fighting and take part in the fight. And Baghdadi also called on people in the West to do whatever they could to begin the process of the Islamization of America. So go figure. So that's what the deal is there. So
we have a few minutes before the break. If you could, Dad, maybe after at the top of the next hour, we can get into last night on the end of the show. We had an update from Steve Quayle about the military communications.
Yeah, I checked that out.
There's a few updates on the Q alerts.
Okay, folks, I'm just going to direct you to the Q alerts. I don't know any more than that. I mean, seriously, I don't have any idea of anything beyond what they're saying. I don't understand, except to say this: there are multiple levels of warfare. Communications is part of it. I would not get. I would not say, well, geez, nukes are going to be flying here. Intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads are going to be flying any moment. I don't think it's. Based on my sources, that's not what this is all about. This is kind of probing and jabbing and poking at the bear and poking at each other at this multi-level chess game. So that's kind of what I found with respect to what's being reported. It doesn't mean that we're at the threshold of nuclear war. Please understand that, because we're now in an extension of the Cold War, and the fighting is asymmetrical. Messages are being sent in different fashions, but with respect to the communications, I would just go ahead and consult the Q alert and read what's there. There's nothing I can add to that except what I just did.
All right, this story, definitely very interesting. China bought $22 billion worth of U.S. homes over a recent 12-month span. China became the largest international buyer of U.S. homes last year, according to a report from NAR, taking over from Canada. In terms of volume of transactions, Canadians still represent the largest foreign buyers. But over the last 12 months, ending in March 2014, Chinese buyers bought about $22 billion worth of properties in the U.S., accounting for 25% of total international sales. What's more, 76% of sales were purchases, while 24% required mortgage financing. But what exactly were Chinese buyers looking for, and why were they looking? California, and where were they looking? California, Washington, New York were the biggest markets for Chinese buyers. The median price homes they purchased was $523,000. 39% of properties purchased were intended to be used as primary residence, and 49% were for vacation homes or to rent. And this, I mean, how disturbing is this? $22 billion worth of U.S. homes purchased by China in a one-year period. When I read that, I had to read this article like 3 times before I really started to understand. We hear about this, we talk about this, we know that we're the collateral, us and our property or land is a collateral for the national debt, China being the biggest holder of that debt. Not only are they buying our treasury bills, they're also buying our land. Not only are they buying our land, they're being given parts of the land. And it might not look so on paper, but when you see the president allocate, 650 million acres for a national refuge in Arkansas or wherever it is, this is land being cordoned off so that no private business or public people will be able to purchase it. It's being by the federal government. Basically.
It's a full collateralization of America for the debt.
And so we see a huge increase here. And at the same time, BRICS established a $100 billion bank and currency reserve to cut out Western dominance. And this is stuff we're going to get into more on the other side, but the group of emerging economists signed a long-anticipated document to create the $100 billion BRICS Developmental Bank and Reserve Currency Pool worth over $100 billion. Both will counter the influence of Western-based lending institutions and will decrease the value of the dollar. The new bank will provide money for infrastructure and development projects in BRICS countries. And unlike the IMF or World Bank, each nation has equal say regardless to size of GDP. Very interesting stuff. As we come up here again at the top of the hour, a quick alert and prayer request for our friends at Full Spectrum Survival. We will not have a news in 2 minutes tonight, as they had a terrible storm come through and take out their communication tower, their closest internet connect, where they connect to the internet, how they communicate. They actually drove 45 minutes out of their way to a town, the closest town with internet, to send us an email to let us know that they are offline and will be offline, and we'll be back up as soon as possible. So keep them in your prayers, and we hope for a speedy recovery as they provide such a tremendous and important service here with the news in 2 minutes, giving you 2 minutes of the most important and critical news of the day, which is very important and is a baseline and sets the tone for us, a lot of times for what we talk about on the show.
It's an incredibly valuable service they provide, and the information that they cram in a 2-minute period is just beyond, really beyond. I just can't believe how they do it. Folks, you're listening to a very special Tuesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. It is July 15, 2014. Doug Hagmann, with me is Joe Hagmann.
Hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Tuesday, July 15th, 2014. We are in the middle of the month here as time continues to move so fast. We're going to be taking your phone calls this hour at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. There was a health survey done giving the government its first large-scale data on gay and bisexual population. This is from the Washington Post. Less than 3% of the U.S. population identify themselves as gay, lesbian, or bisexual, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, reported Tuesday in the first large-scale government survey measuring American sexual orientation. The National Health Interview Survey, which is the government's premier tool for annually assessing Americans' health and behaviors, found that 1.6% of adults self-identified as gay or lesbian and 0.7% consider themselves bisexual. The overwhelming majority of adults, 96.6%, labeled themselves as straight in the survey from 2013. An additional 1.1% declined to answer. The figures offered a slightly smaller assessment of the size of gay and lesbian bisexual population than other surveys, which have pegged the overall population at closer to 3.5 or 4%. And you've talked about this a lot, Dad. How such a very small minority of the population can have such a huge or a tremendous
It's a huge
push.
lobby. Yeah, it's look 3.5%, and I hope people understand this. The reason behind this push, how can less than really? When you take out the most extreme, you're looking at less than 3% of the population are homosexual or bisexual or transgendered. So the question becomes, how does that very small percentage of the population, how are they able to affect, control the other 97%? Well, they do it the same way, and largely in the same way that criticism against Obama is deflected. They cry, "Oh, that's bigoted talk, bigoted discussion. You can't. You're a homophobe. That's what you are. You're a homophobe. You can't. Don't judge me." And so on. The other side of that coin, the same coin, is of course the money that has gone into this. The only thing I can describe it is this Caligula agenda.
You're right. I mean, imagine the amount of money. I mean, between funding the caliphate in the Middle East, funding the deception, and all these, controversies that we have. You see the misappropriations of the VA, the IRS scandals, all these other scandals, and then the money that goes into banking this alone probably could, we could fill our national debt and make it even.
Well, but my question, and when I was looking at this, is who's funding all of this? And any time I discuss this, ladies and gentlemen, I get some of the most vicious and vile hate emails I've ever gotten. In fact, I got a letter, very, very threatening letter through the U.S. mail, telling me essentially that I was going to be castrated, among other things, and vile, vicious. But having said that, who's funding this? Who's funding this? Why? Well, we know that there's an attack on the traditional family. We know that there is this push by, and Steve Quayle, Pastor Langford, they talk about this, and sometimes their passion drowns out the facts. And they're right to be passionate, though. Steve, for example, he's right to be passionate when he talks about this issue because it's so important. Where the mainstream church is bending over backwards to tolerate the homosexual community. I'm not going to say gay community. That's another rule we have here. Homosexuality is not to be referred to as homosexuals is not to be referred to as a gay person. That is really a bastardization of the English language, and it's also neurolinguistic programming. There's a reason behind that. It's homosexuality. A person is a homosexual. He or she is not gay. But the larger picture, everyone needs to understand. A society, our republic cannot withstand or survive an attack on the moral and religious and cultural fabric. An immoral government cannot lead this country and have this country survive. This country cannot survive without morality, without following God's laws. I'm very anxious, by the way, and this is something I'm looking forward to bring Greg Jackson on to talk about his new book, 40 Things to Tell Your Children Before. I'm sorry, I'm not. You know what? I'm not even going to. I just messed up the title. But Greg Jackson has a new book that
40 Things to Tell Your Children Before You Die.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I didn't know if it was a personal pronoun or not in there, but nonetheless, in his other books that he has written with Steve Deese, he talks about this very subject, about the militant activist, homosexual activist agenda, and how really this is spawned by the larger communist agenda. The very people who hate the homosexuals are using them to destroy our country. It's really, sometimes it's difficult to follow this without having a scorecard, without identifying the players. It almost seems antithetical to the purpose of the people funding. I mean, it's bizarre, but the fact of the matter is, you've got to look at this in the larger sense. Look at the larger picture.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about.
With that, let's go to the phone lines. We'll take some calls starting this hour. We're going to go to area code 916 first. 916, you're on the air. What's on your mind tonight? All right, we'll come back to you, 916. We're going to go to 253, area code 253. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. All right, we'll come back to you, 916. We're going to go to 253, area code 253. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. That's interesting. All right, we'll come back to you, 916.
Hey,
all right.
Hey, Doug, Joe. Hey, you guys, it's Jim Brilliant up here in Lakewood, Washington. How you guys doing, man? I'm missing you.
No, very good. Thank you. Unsure what's going on in the background there. If you've got any.
No, that was from the first. That was echo loop from the first.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right.
I'm going to turn my phone up a little bit. Hang on a minute.
All right.
A little music playing here. All right. Sounds good. What's up?
Good. What's going on, fellas?
Well, you got the floor. You tell us.
Here lately. You guys got some good callers that call in too, man. I really, you know what? This is a great show.
Well, thanks. What do you have to say? What can you add to the discussion? What's on your mind? What's keeping you up at night? What are you seeing that's troubling you?
Oh man, I've been under about a week and a half of oppression, man. I'm just, that's just all I do is I of course I'm disabled, so all I do is I'm in the Word in the morning when I get up. And then the rest of the day is just searching truth and knowledge, and you know what? And then most of it is doom and gloom, like Steve Quayle says, it's doom porn, or whatever he wants to call it. But and I called a friend the other day. He's just a friend. He's not even a brother in the Lord. I've been praying for this guy since the 70s. Anyway. I said, I'm just overwhelmed with all this, man. How am I going to pull this all off? How am I going to get through this? And you know what? It comes down to the lack of faith on my part. And I keep and I just got a good letter today from Pastor Langford because I support his ministry, and he sends me a letter, and he always includes something that I need to read, and it just helped me out through the day, and I was really glad that he wrote that. Don't give up, man. Just you just got to stay in there, and I'm not giving up. I'm and my friend. And when And I'm telling you, my oppression's been so bad that I've had thoughts of suicide, and you know, and it's just like I can't never go there. I can't never do that. Or I'll never do that. And
well, you better not, or Joe and I are gonna listen. I'm gonna stop you right there. You better not, or Joe and I are going to have to take a road trip and duct tape you down to a chair and indoctrinate you into the real life. And I know, look, I know you well enough. I believe that you know, you say that you know, I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried about you. I know that you can handle this, but see that's what the enemy is counting on to get you off.
Yeah, I know that. I know the author. I know who the author of it is, man. You know, I know where this comes from. You know, it might take me a day or two and get squared around and figure this all out, but that's what it comes down to, because the author of it is Satan, and I understand that. You know, and I just, you know, I get, and it just, and I have no. Look, I'm here by myself, me and little Taco, and I don't have no fellowship. You know, people I try to talk to think I'm crazy. They look at me with the deer in the headlights look, you know, and it's like, and then they just walk away, and then, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm here by myself, man, and I can't find a church, man. You know how many churches I've went to out here? I've been to mega churches. I've been there with Mark Driscoll up in Seattle. I know Mark. I know Kenneth Copeland. I've met Kenneth Copeland. I've met all these big people. And you know what, man? Every time I go to a church, it seems like I just get up and just walk out of there shaking my head. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. You just gotta be kidding me. It's apostate. It's bad. It's not right. It doesn't add up with Scripture, and I'm not going to waste my time with that. Am I wrong or am I right?
No. Look, I think you are correct. Fellowship in the Word is extremely important, and that's why we attempt as much as we can to have Pastor Langford on, and with Steve Quayle, especially on Sundays, to minister to people, because people are hungry for the Word, and they don't have it anywhere else, and we're trying to fill that need. And
you do a fine job, too, really.
Well, thank you, but it's also important for people like yourself to find, locally, to find others who are like-minded. I believe it is. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
That was a joke, right? Come on.
Well, look, you know, I got a letter. I read a letter here. This was probably sent a couple of weeks ago. A young woman, or a woman in the San Francisco area, saying, "Boy, if you know of any church or any group that I could hook up with in my area." I got to tell you, my friend, what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out a way. We've been doing this now for the last year, trying to figure out a way where we can arrange or assist people like yourself in hooking up with like-minded people in your area.
Hey, Doug.
And we have not been successful.
How many times have you ever seen a 253 area code come across your phone? Every time that 253 comes by, you know that's me.
Well, yeah. Although I got to tell you, it's getting a little bit.
Where's the rest of these people in Tacoma and Lakewood, man?
Well, you're in occupied territory, though.
I know
Lakewood
it, man.
area.
You know what? I'll tell you how bad it is here. Gay marriage is fine. Dope smoking is great, but you can't collect rainwater. That's against the law. Are you like Colorado? I must have missed that law. No, I'm in Washington State, man.
No,
I'm in Washington State.
Is marijuana legal in your state?
Yeah, they just talked about the other day that the stores ran out of dope, man, because everybody's wanting it. So they can go smoke dope and have gay sex. I don't know what's going on, man. You know what? I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this craziness here, man. And every time I get a pamphlet for a vote, I'm not voting for any of these liberals or any of these Republicans that just pussyfoot around everything. I'm just not going to mess with that. You hear me? I just go straight to trash. I'm not voting here ever. I didn't vote in the last election because I didn't vote for either one. I knew they both were ugly and corrupt and evil. When you vote for the lesser of two evils, what do you get? You still get evil.
That's right.
My friend, you're absolutely correct. Look, the only thing I can tell you is we've got to stick together. You know, it's difficult when we're separated by thousands of miles, but we can do it. We can do it. We have to do it. Well, what other choice do we have?
I know. I do it. I'm going to do it. I've got no choice. I can't turn back. I'm not turning back.
We can't.
I've come too far.
That's right. That's right.
I just told the guy today, that the maintenance man, he said, well, you know, maybe you're being a little hard on some of these ministers. I said, what? When a minister's message doesn't line up with Scripture, I don't have no part in that. I need to go.
What was his response?
What was his response?
Yeah, the deer in the headlights look, right?
Well, that and he says, well, maybe you just need to go check out this church. And I said, do you know how many churches I've walked out of in this area around here and just shake my head? It's like, I'm tired of trying, man. I've had enough. But on the other side of this point is, I don't have any fellowship. Anybody that believes anything like I believe, or like Pastor Langford, you know. I think he's the man right there.
Yeah, he is definitely our in-house spiritual advisor. Having met him in person and talked to him.
Mine too, man. I love the guy. I love his message. It's every Saturday. I'm at YouTube and doing his sermons. That's my Sabbath, and that's, you know, my choice. And I had to throw that in there.
No, that's good. We're all for Pastor David Langford. He's got some marvelous videos, audios. So definitely, voiceofevangelism.com. The voiceofevangelism.com.
Yeah, I just got a letter today, man, from him, and he took the time out to write. You know how many times I've just given money and the ministries, and all I got back was a form letter with a form line, you know, signature. David Langford wrote a half a paragraph, explaining to me and giving me Scripture, giving me encouragement, and signed it in his real name. That's what I call stand up.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm just, and I had to go show it to the guy the maintenance guy I was talking to. I said, this is the kind of people I'm talking about, man. Read this.
Well, hey, I got something for you here. We're gonna take another call, but we're gonna take another call right from one of your neighbors from a 253 area code. How's that?
No kidding. Really?
Absolutely. Yep. Just popped up here.
I've never even heard it. I've been listening to you guys for a year, and I've never heard anybody from 253. Well, go ahead and take them, man. I'm not talking to you guys. I love you guys, and keep doing what you're doing, and don't give up. And I'm not either, man. And when it's all over with, and we win this thing, and we'll see each other in heaven. That's for sure.
Right on.
God bless you. God bless you.
All right. With that, we're going to go to 253 again. 253, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
How you guys doing? My name is Michael. How are you doing, Joe and Doug?
Very well.
Fantastic. Great to hear from you, Michael.
This is my first live broadcasting, and this is my first call. I just
this is great.
Yeah, I have listened to you guys off air all the time. Really appreciate it. And my top three things I want to do right now is just give you guys a quick word of prayer, just over safety of you guys, and also just that God would just submit your commitment and your faith in Him, and also in just this beautiful country He's given us. 2, I just felt really compelled to let that guy know and label around him. There's other people around him who really truly believe in exactly where this country stands on, Washington's an incredible military place. And then the last thing I just wanted to get is your guys' opinion on, you guys seek after truth, search after truth, just like the Bible talks about. But I was wondering, are there people who are just diving into this truth and kind of categorizing and logging it for future generations? Because I feel we're coming up a precedented time where either we go to a dark age or either we further the truth and go into the light. So, and your comments, please.
Well, I would say yes. We are going and have been and probably are at the height of and will continue to reach new heights of a spiritual dark age until the Lord returns.
And an informational dark age, a practical one at that, too. What we've been doing here, just so people like yourself and others know, is when we do research, and we do a lot of research, I mean, every day is a day of research, we have a library that not only of books that have been written by others, but a library of binders. So, for example, if, for example, you want to know about Bear Stearns, what caused them to fail, or the real story behind that, we will grab that binder of the larger financial picture. So, what we're also attempting to put that into a resource library online for however long that might last, but then have it on disc and CD as well. So, yes, we've been trying to do that. And before I forget, let me say this. The third-party application, the app that has come out through the App Store, we are attempting to see if we can use that without violating anyone's privacy, to connect to people in areas, the same geographical areas, like-minded folk, if they want to get together or something like that. So we'll let them know that you're around. So I just want to mention all of those things there. So hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. You guys are networking people with the same like-mindedness and same call to, follow, for one, keep God first in their priorities. I mean, just like that gentleman said from Lakewood, I mean, the region that we in is occupied territory. I mean, you ever been to Seattle, sir? I mean, you don't want to go on a late night. I tell you that for certain. I mean, I've been up there before, and a whole riot comes through because of one dude gets locked up in jail, and that reason alone made me go, I need to have a kit ready so I can extradite myself from that situation. Like, I can't take the risk of my loved ones around me while I'm trying to enjoy any type of entertainment in the city of life. So I wanted to say one thing too, that there are churches out here deep in the boondocks who, regardless of 501c3, they stand up and they speak out their principles. Now, they don't have to say names. They don't have to say the renegade in chief like you guys say at all. But they stand up and they state their principles. I mean, it is difficult to find, like that man said, but there are people who are standing, and I believe that people they're moving from the gray zone now. We're seeing an influx of people deciding on their rights and on their views more black and white rather than being so shady, and that's extremely exciting because, I mean, we live in a new time of George Washington's and great orators who are standing up and now speaking out like you and yourselves. So I just wanted to thank you guys, and if anything else, I'd love to pray over you guys on air if that'd be okay.
We would be honored.
Yeah. All right, let's just go to the Lord in prayer. God, we just come before you just as a group, God, just of those who just believe wholeheartedly that you have a direction for this nation, have a direction for just, God, for the Hagmanns, for all of our families that are a part of us. God, just I pray right now that it's just a special blessing, and God, just a fervor, God, that you just place upon just Jug and Joe. God, may you just rightly divide the word of truth in their lives biblically as they read and understand your word, God, and also just that relationship, that God, that you would just make it deeper and deeper between themselves and between you, God, so that they can further look into the truth and separate lies and call the righteous out and also call the liars out, God. And I just thank you for just their courage and their boldness just to stand up for the truth no matter what. because we know where we're going, God, and we know that we will see your face one more. And I thank you for all this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. We do appreciate your prayers and your thoughts. And there's a reason you were listening live tonight as opposed to on the archive.
There is no accident.
Exactly. And giving faith to your neighbor, so to speak, or the I'm sure that it covers a wide area, 253. However, you're in the neighborhood, so to speak. So more from the 253 area code, I'm sure, will be coming through and saying, "Hey, I'm here too." So God bless you, my friend.
Good. You too.
All right,
sir.
brother. Thank you.
Right. All right.
Very good. Joe, I saw this. I just want to, before we take another call, I just want to say this. The status quo with respect to the economy. People are looking around and saying, well, things aren't that bad. And, of course, you've got old Yellen. That, of course, is a play on Janet Yellen and old Yeller. But talking about the economy and everything kind of staying the same or getting better. But even if the economy were increasing exponentially, you could never come close to offsetting even the interest payments on our expanding debt. You've got to understand, folks, that we cannot sustain the debt that we have. I've been getting some emails about this. I just wanted to make sure people understood this, because we are headed for, even without any external influence, such as a terror attack or some sort of event, we cannot sustain our current economic status. It's not that hard. The debt that we have has to be paid back, or if not paid back, then it's got to be discharged or written off. And the loan or the loan made by the lender has got to be taken as a loss. Now, interest rates. Interest is paid on a debt to compensate the lender for the money, for the risk of loaning it to a borrower. It's plain and simple. I mean, it's simple economics. With our debt, the real economy, now this as measured by our gross domestic product, our debt is skyrocketing, while our real growth is stagnant. We would have to create. There's just no way. There's just no way that we can survive the debt we have right now. And I've seen people look at the national debt. The clock that the numbers keep changing, or making remarks about it, kind of chuckling and making snide comments about it. But the fact of the matter is, there's no way we can get by. We can win on this. The Federal Reserve, their interest, when in the course of human history have interest rates been basically at 0%? The rates can't drop any lower. So they either have to stay at the status quo or stay at the current levels or rise. Well, there's no way that they could stay at the current levels, and if they rise, oh boy! Now you figure this. I mean, car loans right now, what are they, about 4.5%? Credit cards are anywhere between, my goodness, 15 to 30%. Student loans, 8%. Mortgages right now are about 4.25% for a 30-year fixed rate. Any decline, for example, in interest rates, while it allows people to borrow more money, I mean, figure it this way. If you buy a $30,000 car today, the payment that you'd be making would be less than a $15,000 car that you would have purchased on credit back 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Another example: if you buy a $4,000 or $400,000 house or a $500,000 house, you're looking at really the same payment as a $250,000 house 15 years ago. Now, that people look at that and say, "Oh, things are great because you're getting more for a bigger bang for your buck, if you will." This dropping of the interest rates, it's what has happened. It has expanded the debt. Folks, please think about that for a moment. You're actually borrowing. The Fed, the system, is allowing you to borrow more money. Your exposure is much greater now because of the lower rates. And you think, well, I get a bigger house, or I get a bigger, better car. At least on the surface, appears to be true. But the other part of the equation is that the dollar is being devalued. And also, the income, especially people here in America, in the West, wherever you're listening to this, your income is either stagnant or you're experiencing less buying power. So you're not going to be able to really take on much more debts. So now that the interest rates are at historical lows, you can't go any further. So at this point, we have to say, you know what, the jig is up.
Yeah, we need to be responsible in our finances as much as possible. Stay debt free as we can, as it will truly, if not, you will destroy yourselves financially. And there's no reason that has to be. I know times are tough. You know, the economy is hard. Job market is awful. But we got to stay the course. No questions asked. I mean, we need to do what we can to make sure that we have what we need to survive. And at the same time, we have to cut out the things that, you know, the difference between needs and wants. When you study business, it's one of the first things that you learn about is needs and versus things that you want. And you know, what things that you might enjoy might have to be removed from your daily activities or daily purchases, versus things that you will need are much more important, obviously. You know, well, what good is it if you squander, you know, you see all these people who win Mega Million lottery jackpots end up being broke. Well, why is that? It's because of money management. You know, you can manage $1,000 a year or $100,000 a year. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It matters how you manage it.
And you know, this brings up a very good point, because, and ladies and gentlemen, I suspect the majority of listeners are probably the same way as I am, especially as you get older. You know, I typically get up very early, and I'll walk with my dog and think, and either walk in the dark or perhaps watch the sunrise, and it's a good time to think. And I was thinking to myself today, you know, I wanted to, for example, purchase something for the studio. I'm thinking to myself, first of all, do I really need it? Do we really need it? Second of all, am I being a good stewards with the money that we have? And of course, you know, you put it to prayer, and you have to think about this, because if you're not responsible for, I mean, it sounds almost very trite, but especially in times like today, you've got to be extra special, very, very astute, and really think about money management or managing your finances. It really is a minefield out there, and I know a lot of people are really struggling to make it, struggling to pay the bills, struggling to keep the lights on, and struggling. and I understand that, and you don't want to mess up, and it's incumbent upon us. I mean, to me, and I think most people listening to this would agree, we have to answer to God whether we spend that money. Let's say we have $100 and we spend that money on something. To me, we've got a responsibility to use or to spend that money consistent with the response. I mean, we have to be responsible in how we spend the money, I guess is what I'm saying. And we have to rethink things and really carefully weigh how we're going to allocate the money we do have. And don't forget, folks, rough times are coming, so rougher times are coming.
Yeah.
So we have to prepare for that.
Let's take another call. We're going to go to area code 949. 949, you're up next. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello?
Good evening.
Hey, it's Jeannie, your toffee girl.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Was that ever good? Folks, Jeannie makes the best toffee I've ever tasted.
Yeah, we met Jeannie and her husband in Montana at the Whitestone Remnant Conference.
Yeah, we had such a great meeting. Couple things that I just wanted to share with you. It's interesting what you're talking about with regards to buying cars and buying homes at low interest rates. My husband's car literally blew up, and we went down to the car dealership, and we got, of course, coerced. And I'm kicking myself now, but kind of coerced into buying a car that was a little more than we could afford because they were offering a 0.9 interest rate. But, I walked away feeling sick to my stomach, but we needed a car, and we ended up buying, a mid-sized car. We didn't go crazy, but even so. So I wanted to mention that. And then I also just wanted to say, this whole homophobe thing that is being, we're homophobes or we're racist. I mean, I think that we should start a movement and, tell people that if they're against a family, they're a family-ophobe, or if they're against Christ, they're a Christophobe. What's wrong with Christ? Are you a Christophobe, or are you a Bible-ophobe? What's wrong with the written word of God that has been around for, 4,000 years and New Testament 2,000 years? So sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. And I just wanted to let you know what was on my mind regarding that. And I also wanted to share with you something that happened after Whitestone. Pastor John Kyle did an amazing deliverance, and then he did a deliverance on your show. And
I don't know if we're losing you. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear me?
We heard you get into the deliverance that John Kyle did at the conference and on our show.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Sometimes my cell connection isn't very good. But I just wanted to share that, I get some amazing signs. It's kind of wild, but I get some amazing signs. And after Pastor Kyle did his deliverance in Whitestone and then did it on your show, I listened to his show, and I was delivered from my home based on Pastor Kyle's message and his deliverance process, just listening to it on the radio. And it was amazing because, it's just some really amazing things have happened. And one thing that happened was I have a lot of crows in my neighborhood, which is new, and they're huge, and they soar around my house, and it was really frightening me and really bothering me, and I knew it wasn't a good thing. So I prayed, and the crows are gone. And not only are the crows gone, but I took my dog out for a walk the day after my deliverance, and when I took my dog out for a walk, there was a dead crow on the ground, and I really knew that God had taken away that fear and that item, you know. So I just want you to know how much I love you guys, and my husband loves you, and we are so blessed by everything you do. So just thank you so much, and particularly out in California, in Orange County, we feel like we're being closed in. You know, we're absolutely closed in. We have, you know, illegal aliens in Port Hueneme, and then we have them in San Diego area, and then Murrieta. So we're really, really feeling a lot of pressure. And your message every day, your show Monday through Friday, and then Sheila's show on Saturday really blesses us. And thank you so much for everything you do.
Oh, Jean,
thank you.
Thank you so much. And you and your husband are fantastic people, and to just keep keeping on, you know. And we have to put up. We have to play our positions. We have to, in the midst of the enemy, we've got to just stand up and say, not now, not here, not now, not us, not today. And we have to push back. And you're right. As you started the conversation, we have to stick up for the nuclear family, for the traditional family. We've got to stick up for the Word of God. We've got to stick up for what's right and what is godly, and dispense with the others. And you know, I like to say this: America is not suffering. Us Americans, or us, the listeners, we're not suffering from intolerance. We're not intolerant. We're suffering from too much tolerance. We tolerate too much.
That's right. Absolutely. I agree 100%. And, you know, I get so frustrated because, you know, it really is a scam when you hear someone, you know, complaining that we're racist or that we're homophobes. You know, I love human beings, and, you know, I'm an event planner. That's my trade. And, you know, there's a lot of homosexuals in catering and events and parties and florists and caterers, people that I deal with on a daily basis. But the reality is I love them as human beings, and yet, you know, we shouldn't tolerate sin. You know, any kind of sin. You know, we have all my friends are sinners. I'm a sinner, but we just have to recognize that human beings are all sinners. But the point is that we have to stand against what's right and what's biblical. And you know, if there's Bible-phobes out there or Christophobes out there or family-phobes out there, well, you know, it's time to fight back. So I just love you guys, and I just wanted to call in. And thank you so much for taking my call. God bless you.
No, thank you. Jeannie. God bless you. You take care. Say hello to your husband
on
behalf of both
of us.
All right.
I will,
All
and
right.
I will be in touch. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to move right along here to area code 303. I believe this is Colorado. 303, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Joe, Doug. It's Ken in Colorado.
Hi, Ken.
Ken.
I don't usually call in, guys. I really don't usually call in.
Folks, I just want Ken, if I can just say this. Ken is well known. He's a good friend of the show, good friend of mine. He's a stand-up guy. That's all I'm going to say. He's just I can vouch for this man. He's a great guy. So, sorry.
Just
go ahead, Ken.
Kind of listening to the show tonight, standing in my backyard, looking at the big old beautiful Rocky Mountains, and you know, I just kind of got a thought in my mind, and with all the things that are going on, I just wanted to kind of get a point across to the people. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. I talk to a lot of people and a lot of high-end people. Doug can vouch for that. There are bad times coming. And I just want people to understand something. It's not the end of the world. What it is is it's something to where people need to understand that they need to position themselves to get out of the way. A lot of things are going to go wrong, and those who are going to best be suited for what's coming are those who are going to be able to stand back, stay away from the havoc of what's going on. I position myself that way. I know Joe and Doug do, and a lot of the people that I talk with, and a lot of these people are very high-end people. A lot of them, you listen to them on Joe and Doug's show and other shows that I kind of help with from time to time. But I really think the time is coming short, and it's coming shorter each day, and that you really need to understand where you're at with yourself and where you're at with Christ. And you need to position yourself so that you can step away from it. Don't be the people out there at the grocery stores when there's nothing there. I can assure you, you will see soccer moms in the aisleways fighting for loaves of bread. That's not good. So, I mean, again, I just trying to put a little bit in here. I don't come to you as somebody who's just talking off the cuff. Come to you as somebody who knows and has talked with a lot of very high-end people who are very knowledgeable about what's going on. Doug can confirm this. He knows my bone.
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
You know,
Ken, I'm sorry about the delay. I just want to say this to the listeners. You know, a lot of names that you would instantly recognize. Ken is either, you know, within elbow or rubbing elbows with, or has the ear of, or they have his ear. You know, I mean, it's an amazing. Ken is a nexus person, just a tremendous source of solid information. So please listen to what he's saying. Go ahead, Ken.
But I mean, as I said earlier, I don't reach out. I don't talk on radio shows. I don't do any of that. I utilize what I have available to me to get the word out through other means like Doug and Joe and other people who have large name brand radio stations so that you can hear what's going on. But I can tell you from what I'm hearing, and a lot of the stuff that I hear, you never probably get to hear, because sometimes it may be like, we don't need to say that. Maybe we need to say it this way. It has caused me to have such a rise in my awareness and my preparation that I can assure you I will not be surprised. I will not be caught short. I will not put my family at risk. I will not be standing in a bread line somewhere. And if you don't do this for you and yours, you run a risk of major consequence. And you don't have days, weeks, and months. If you don't do it today, start today. Start tomorrow. Do a little bit more. Do a little bit more. Get a little bit more self-sufficient. Figure out how you're going to do water. Figure out how you're going to do food supplies. Figure out what you're going to do to barter with. You are cutting yourself short. You're cutting your family short. And the potential for you to be pushed into a situation that is absolutely unattainable is, oh my God, I don't even know the words to put into that. But I can tell you, folks, again, I don't do this, I don't call in, but I felt compelled to tonight. Time is short. You need to make preparations. You need to protect your families, and you need to give to them the sustenance that they're going to need to be able to survive. Get out of the way. It's not the end of the world. Just get enough, do enough, be prepared enough to get out of the way. What's going to happen in the streets is a different thing. Let it happen in the streets. There's nothing you can do about it. Put yourself in a position to where you're out of the way. And you can stay where you're at or go where you need to go. Doesn't matter. But I'd rather be a year long than a day short. Please, please, give the consideration to your family, your kids, your life, and your belief in Christ. Prepare for what's to come. It is coming, and the days are short. Thank you, Doug and Joe.
Ken, God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, Ken.
Certainly a rare event, and that I would urge everyone to heed his words. And if you're listening to this on archive, go back and listen to it again and understand what Ken is saying, because Ken is in a position to know. He's in a position to know. And what he said, get out of the way, at the very least, get out of the way and prepare. And you know what, folks? Look, both Joe and I came to this game. The preparedness game, it's not a game. We came to this, or we arrived here later than many of you. And we find ourselves having to prepare, thinking about preparations, trying to prepare. When I say trying, I mean actually preparing. Whether it's buying the extra can of soup at the grocery store or clipping coupons until you have calluses on your fingers. Yes, we do that. Or going through the old change, or going through rolls of change from the bank. We understand. If nothing else, we do understand that not everyone has got the budgets of, I don't know. For example, we don't have the budget of Alex+Jones or Glenn Beck or insert name here. We just don't. So we've got to do the very things that what I call most normal people have to do. It takes time. It takes some initiative and a commitment on your part. But as Ken said,
edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, we're going to be taking your phone calls for the rest of this hour at 661-244-9839. Just want to hit one piece of news here. I know we have a lot of listeners on the West Coast and specifically in California. California approves water fines, or fines for water wasters, as they say. California water regulators voted Tuesday to approve fines up to $500 a day for residents who, they say, waste water on their lawns, landscaping, car washing, as a report showed that consumption throughout the state has actually risen amid the worst drought in nearly 4 decades. The action by the State Water Quality Control Board came after its own survey showed that conservation measures to date have failed to achieve the 20% reduction in water use sought by Governor Jerry Brown. Survey results released before the 4-0 vote showed water consumption throughout California had actually jumped by 1% this past May compared to the same month in the previous years. The fines will apply only to wasteful outdoor watering, including watering to landscape. And they'll measure this by if the water runoff flows onto the sidewalks, washing a vehicle without a nozzle on the hose, or hosing down hard surfaces such as sidewalks or driveways. Our goal here is to light a fire under those who are not yet taking the drought seriously, the chairwoman Felicia Marcus said in an interview after the vote. She said the city and suburban residents are not fully aware of the seriousness of the 3-year drought, the worst in California since the mid-1970s. It goes on to say that the $500 fine will not be given immediately, but there will be a warning system put in place first. But this goes to show the level of drought that California is in, and also how the public government there, or how the government there is going to make money off the public. And they set up a plan to implement this $500 fine for water wasters, yet they have no plan as to how to use that money to help get water back into their system. It's really just a punishment type thing, but a severe drought continuing in California. And for those who are missing Stan Deo, and maybe not have heard, he is going to be on with us after the end of the month, Pikes Peak Prophecy in the News Conference, after he gives his presentations on the Garden of Eden and Solomon and his temple. Those are going to be the two things that he talks about during the Prophecy in the News Conference in Pikes Peak, Colorado at the end of this month. He will be joining us after that conference is done, as he's put a lot of work into his presentations.
I would really love to be able to attend that conference just to hear that presentation, but certainly I'm sure Stan will be able to tell us following that conference.
And for those who can attend, just like in Orlando, they had the live stream feed, where if you just go to prophecyinthenews.com, you can purchase this. I think it's $50 to get all the presenters. You can watch them however you'd like. They have a time period, if not unlimited time, after the conference to be able to access those presentations if you didn't get to watch them when you wanted to. So go to the Prophecy in the News, check that out if that's something you're interested in. But Stan will be joining us back, I think, in the first Thursday in August, I would imagine.
Tuesday.
Tuesday in August.
Right.
All right.
Before we go to the phones, I got a couple of emails for those who joined us a little bit later, heard me talking about the Ahmed Abu Khattala and the Benghazi. And, of course, Joe, can you replay that clip about Khattala?
Yeah, this clip is Eric, during an interview. We played a piece of a clip yesterday, I think, of Eric Holder saying, it keeps him up at night about the domestic terrorist threat posed by homegrown and lone wolf terrorists. Well, this was part of the same interview. When asked about Benghazi terror suspect being held in civilian trial, he said it's time for us to get beyond this point because it's become a political tool and most of the information is lies. Here's the 1.5-minute clip.
Split from them, have become strong. The administration recently scored a victory in the war on terror with the capture of Ahmed Abu Khattala, one of the alleged planners of the assault on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that killed U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans. But even that has not been without controversy. Critics have said it took too long to get him. He was having lunch in public, being interviewed by journalists. What say you to that?
Well, I think, that is really an argument I simply don't understand. It's one thing to talk to a reporter and have your face not even shown on camera while you're doing this. A whole other thing to come to the custody of the FBI, the United States military. I don't think that he would have had a cup of coffee with a couple of FBI agents or members of our military.
He's now being held in the U.S. under tight security, facing trial in federal court in Washington. Well, a number of Republicans on the Hill said he should still be in interrogation on the ship somewhere, military.
Yeah, I was going to say you can cut that. I think the important point here, ladies and gentlemen, is the reference by Holder. Did you notice how he diverted the conversation? Ahmed Abu Khattala was taken into custody June 15th. Month ago. This was a raid. This was described as a secret U.S. military raid in Libya. But here's the problem with Holder's explanation. New York Times reporter David Kirkpatrick sat with Katala in Benghazi, and they shared a drink. In fact, he had a strawberry frappe. He sipped mango juice with CBS News correspondent Elizabeth Palmer. The Times of London's Anthony Lloyd even drank tea in Katala's house. The man who was identified by numerous Western as well as some local Libyan sources as being the ringleader and the coordinator of the Ansar al-Sharia militia group that led the attack in Benghazi, who was taken into custody on June 15th, was out in the open and never had any worries about being captured in a military-type raid. Yet Holder is calling David Kirkpatrick of the New York Times a liar. He's calling Elizabeth Palmer of CBS News a liar. And he's calling Time of London's Anthony Lloyd a liar. Boy, that sounds like an awful lot like Bill Ayers. Everyone else is a liar but me. Now, real quickly, just to go over this again, and Liz, thank you so much from New Jersey. From New Jersey, just for an expansion on this. Look, the many sources, many reports from multiple sources, including Western and NATO contractors, as well as Russian sources. A majority of the FSA fighters, the Free Syrian Army fighters, initially sent into Syria in the time period just before and just immediately after the Benghazi attack. They were trained at training camps on the outskirts of Benghazi. Now, the training camps were run by Saudi, by the nation of Qatar, and also by NATO forces. They were initially used to train the fighters who opposed and overthrew and ultimately killed Gaddafi. They were then sent to Turkey for staging to take out Assad, hence the meeting between the Turkish ambassador and Stevens in Benghazi. Now, a large number of those FSA fighters, folks, were members of Ansar al-Sharia and were recruited out of Ansar al-Sharia. So since Katala was widely reported to be the head of Ansar al-Sharia in the Benghazi area, would it seem logical that those training camps operated with some level of involvement or cooperation or assistance from and with him? So who's lying here? Who's being disingenuous here? I'm sure we'll see Media Matters come out and make some sort of explanation about this, or the Mickelsons, who operate the widely known and I believe Soros-funded, I believe Snopes website, say, this is all just nothing. Look, ladies and gentlemen, you're getting this steady stream of very tightly orchestrated and controlled information, these leaks, these information dumps and releases. Look, they're designed to shape public opinion way before any trial of Katala. So, think about this. Katala sat with the reporters. Whose payroll was he on? Whose payroll?
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
All right, let's go back to the phones. We're going to go to area code 870. 870, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello, my name is Laura. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
You there?
How are you?
I'm
we're
wonderful,
here.
Thank you. I'm a first-time caller, and I just wanted to make 3 comments. The first one about the funds and being responsible. I wanted to just make a note regarding Joshua. Joshua says that in chapter 1, verse 8, that the book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. So there's a commandment there, and then there's a promise. So whenever you said, Doug, that that you walk in the morning with your dog, I immediately thought about meditating, and whenever we think about the Lord and we keep the Word in our life and we try to meditate on it, He gives us success from that, because it does take effort because of all the chaos in the world and all the things that are flashing in front of us, and so there's a promise to doing that. And to that man that called earlier about, his isolation, I think was he from Washington?
Yes.
The guy, yeah, okay. I felt I hated that, the way he was talking about, just the churches and all that good stuff. I mean, I just thought about Elijah, how he was sent out, and the Lord told him to be hid. And then, we know the story. There was this huge, this job that he had to do. And, obviously there's not going to be a whole lot of Elijahs, but, we're promised that spirit of Elijah. But, it goes on that conflict that he had with Jezebel, I relate that to a spiritual battle we all go through. And that's a challenge for him. And then later on, that angel of the Lord comes to him, and he says to him, sit down and eat, because the second time he says, the journey that you're about to go through is going to be great. And, basically, if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to make it. And, God has sovereignty over our lives, and if we just trust in Him, we're going to make it. And just knowing that God is in control makes me think of Job, whereas Job is constantly, he doesn't curse God. And then, he's got these friends that's come in, but then God finally speaks to him. And it just lets him know that, hey, this thing that you were battling, basically, I chose you because I had faith in you. I knew that you wouldn't curse me. And then the last thing, the main reason why I wanted to call was, Doug, you had spoke earlier about the scorecard, about all the players that are involved in the world's activities and how it's so hard to keep up.
Right.
And I've been really focused on, and the Lord's really led me to this, about the differences in the gospel relating to his how the leading up to him being crucified, and them betraying him. And each story is a little different. And we see in the temptation of Jesus a great example of what the devil does. It's a critical lesson for every believer, because it is exactly the what's the word I want to use? It's the plan that the devil does for each one of us as a believer. Number one, it creates, and if he, if you be the Son of God, change this rock into bread. And it goes on to, if you just worship me, I'll give you all of this. And then it goes to, he goes up on the pinnacle of the temple. Well, his ultimate goal is to enter Judas and take possession of Judas. And those in the world who have accepted this and have fallen into this lie, they are ultimately playing out this plan towards us. So if we can identify these examples through the temptation of Jesus, it makes it so much easier to see who our enemies are and to see what their motive is. Does that make sense?
not only does it make sense, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking in the background. I was listening, but I was also appreciating the fact that, I learn a lot from the callers, and I learned much from what you just said. It's amazing. Yes, it makes perfect sense. And I want to thank you, and as well as all of the callers. It's great to be able to sit back and listen and learn. Wow. Thank you. Makes
Well, you're very
perfect
welcome, and we do the same from you guys, and it's a wonderful thing that we get to do the same with y'all every night. And but yeah, I really wanted to that was on my heart so much, and it's so important for us all to share because the Word tells us that we all know in part, and if we don't give what the Lord gives us, He'll take it away, and I cannot imagine not receiving that. If you haven't heard the Lord speak to you, you can't understand what I'm saying. And the thought of not having that desperately just scares me, number one. And then two, it just makes my heart hurt to think that I wouldn't have that guidance in my life. And whenever I have the promise of receiving more by giving what I have, and you can apply that to money as well. It's just golden nuggets for our life, and I just love the Lord, and I'm just so thankful to have other people that feel the same way. But anyway, thank you guys for taking my call, and I hope that y'all have a blessed night. And to all the people out there, just stay strong and just know that the Lord loves us. And go to Song of Solomon. I think it's chapter 5. He talks about how much He loves us, and it's just a beautiful story about this girl. She's like, where is my beloved? Where is he? And we need to feel that way. We need to look at it as, where's my beloved? And just know that He's looking and He's waiting to say the same to us. And just hang on to that and know that regardless of what comes our way, that He is in control. God bless. You guys have a wonderful night.
God bless you too. Thank you so much for the great call.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And Joe, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It's really to me it's a gift. We are given a gift of the people who listen and call in, and whether you're a regular caller, first-time caller, whether you've never called or thought about calling, it's a family type of a relationship, but it's so important because I learned so much just by listening.
Yeah, contrary to what some believe, we don't always want to talk. We do want to listen. We do want to hear what's on people's minds. We do want to hear the testimonies, the fellowship, receive the fellowship, and get into your guys' minds to see what's going on, and what your opinion of things are, how you see things.
Exactly. And we know as time, as the sand that goes through that hourglass, and we progress toward the events, and I believe it's going to be a series of events when we see the dollar collapse. And as Ken had so very pointedly stated, there are going to be people who failed to take heed. Folks, maybe it's even someone you tried to talk to about the events who will be in the lines at Walmart or the grocery store trying or wrestling for that last box of cereal or oats or whatever it might be, or that last jug of water. It's so important. It's just so important to listen and to I just think it's a gift that we've got. We've got some of the we have. Something what amazes me is we don't screen calls. We've never screened calls. And for the last 2 years, we've not had a bad call, I don't think.
No.
That says a lot about the integrity and character of you folks. Wow. All right.
Let's go back to the phones. We're going to go to area code 626. Thank you for holding. You're live on the Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug and Joe. Greetings and God's blessings to you from Pasadena, California.
Hey.
Great to hear from you.
Good to speak with you, too. It's been a long time since I've spoken on air with you both. And I'm so happy to make it on air right now because you're, the previous caller and Jeannie touched on it a little bit, too, and you guys have been speaking about it. And tonight I just want to talk really about the callers. And in so doing, Doug, I want to pose a question to you. About a year ago, you and Joe both used to speak a lot about this sort of visceral perception, if you will, of sort of a loneliness among the Hagmann and Hagmann family. And so I wanted to start by asking you, Doug, if that perception is greater than it was via your emails and contact you have with the H&H family, or has it lessened, or is it about the same? What's your take on it?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Judging by the emails and also the correspondence, written correspondence, the letters, the cards that we've received, it seems to be people are starting to find their positions. I don't know if that makes sense, but they're starting to understand, that they've got a position to play, and they're starting to become more comfortable in that role that they are to play. Does that make sense?
Not only does it make sense, that's awesome to hear. And that being said, with your permission, gentlemen, I'll be as succinct as I can, but I'd like to kind of give a brief testimony here this evening, because I really feel it placed on my heart by the Lord that there are those listening who will benefit from it. And sometimes when you're in the middle of, your life, it's hard to step outside and realize the last 6 months have been pretty incredible. So with your permission, may I go ahead and do that?
Oh, please do.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So, gentlemen, it's hard. These things are hard to talk about, so bear with me if my voice quivers a little bit or something, because I am feeling a little bit emotional. But we have to go back to January. And I was laying in bed sick, and I'd been having, as you guys know, I work in the entertainment industry, and so I'd been struggling with some sin. I was kind of doing something I think a lot of Christians do, which was rationalizing my Christian life against the secular sinful things I was doing. And I found myself battling a problem with pharmaceuticals, and a lot of people at the studios do them. They're very prevalent, and I don't mean that as an excuse per se, but anyway, I was laying in bed one night, and I was trying to kick this terrible drug, and I was listening to Pine Ridge Warriors, Brother Marcus and Brother Curtis's show on Blog Talk Radio. And Brother Marcus was doing a teaching on the fivefold ministry, and he just stopped like he hit a brick wall, and he said, folks, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, saints, he called everybody saints. I feel right now there's somebody listening to the show who's struggling with the demonic influence of pharmakia. And if that's you, call right now. And I was laying in my bed, and I was like, oh, Lord, help me. I knew in my heart he's talking directly to me, but I don't want to call a live radio show and fess up to this. So anyway, I said a quick prayer. I picked up the phone. I called. I spoke with Curtis. He got me on air with Brother Marcus. And, gentlemen, Brother Marcus prayed a prayer of deliverance over me, and something went pop inside my chest. And not only have I not taken that medication since, but best of all, I haven't desired to take it. And so that's where the story begins. The next caller to call into Pine Ridge that night was Chance from American Survival Wholesale. And he said, Brother John from Pasadena, we're neighbors, okay? Reach out to me through ASW. We need to get together and talk. So for the sake of time, to compress the story, we became really good friends. He and I and his wife Meryl and I as well. And just started to hang out together a lot. And they showed me a friendship that was different from really anything else I've experienced. And it made me kind of start to face myself in the mirror a little bit more and want to kind of just be more honest as a human being, So that was how I kind of got entered into the Hagmann and Hagmann family, if you will. And then we went one evening to see Paul McGuire, and Paul McGuire does a thing here in L.A. that's like a teaching. It's open to the public, you know. So I got to meet him and talk with him and pray with him, and I started to feel like, hey, I'm starting to really become part of something here, you know. And then came Whitestone. And Whitestone, as both you gentlemen know, was amazing. I sold silver, a lot of silver, at a 50% loss to make it to that conference. You know, those, as you both know, those tickets were super, not the tickets to the conference, but those little airplanes weren't cheap. And yeah. Yeah. And anyway, I won't just go into too much at length about the conference. There's just a couple quick points I want to touch on. The first was, folks, if you feel like you want to get connected into the Hagmann and Hagmann family, make whatever sacrifice you have to get to one of these conferences. Get to Whitestone. Get to Pine Ridge. Get to the others that are definitely coming up. I know Michael Bennett has other things planned. But what happened at Whitestone was on the first night, Pastor John Kyle, who I knew nothing about him, and he and his awesome wife, they testified, they ministered, and they began doing deliverance. And he just said, if you feel there's something that's got a hold on you, that's pressing you down, that's keeping you from the love of Christ, just begin to cough deeply from your spirit, and in your mind, through the power and blood of Jesus Christ, demand that it goes. Deny the permission you've previously given it to exist within you. So I did it, and I did this big cough, and I felt something go bam right out of me. And gentlemen, I haven't smoked a cigarette since that night. And the best part is, I really don't desire them. So that was the beginning of Whitestone for me. Subsequently got baptized by Steve Quayle and Pastor David Langford and had the opportunity to just meet tons of amazing people. I won't start naming names here, but my point tonight is this, that my life has changed dramatically over the past 6 months because Brother Marcus called me to fess up, and I was obedient and did so through the power of the Lord. And then Chance was just who Chance is. He's a compassionate person who really cares about people, and he just reached out to me, and fortunately I found a few new friends, and then of course they know a few people, and it really changed my life for the positive. And I believe, Doug and Joe, that anybody hearing my voice right now tonight, if you folks listen, if you call Pastor John Kyle on the phone, or Brother Marcus, or Brother Curtis, or Pastor Langford, or Pastor Langford's wife, or John Kyle's wife, they'll talk to you and pray with you on the phone. They're not these entertainment big-time celebrities. They're right there. These people are ministers of the Word. So, they're there for you. So do your homework, send an email, pick up the phone, or best thing to do, make it to one of these conferences. Whew. All right. Thanks for letting me speak on those things.
Wow,
it wasn't easy,
John. No, and thank you for your testimony. It's never easy to admit or to confront your own demons. We've all got them, and folks, we're human. We're of the flesh, and wow, powerful stuff.
Well, Doug and Joe, thanks for letting me speak here tonight. And my prayer is, folks, I just want to reiterate, if you've been listening to the show for a long time, but you haven't been able to make any friends yet through the show, I don't want to embarrass yourself or Joe, Doug, but folks, listen, the numbers on this show are astronomical, okay? There are people either in your town or the town next door that are listening. That's the point we're at here. So reach out. When I used to call into this show all the time, and it was so ironic because I walked around the streets of Pasadena and through my job every day, and I had all this information in my head, but I felt so lonely. And at the same time, I could call and speak to this huge, amazing group of people, almost any time, but I could never hear back from any of you guys. And there was an ironic, lonely feeling. But then at Whitestone, all of a sudden I'm meeting all these awesome people. I'm telling you folks, at Whitestone, you would make fast friends with somebody simply because they were within speaking distance of you. Is that right, Doug and Joe?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's correct. I've never felt such a warmth, and that's not to, I'm not advertising Whitestone. Of course, that's past, but it's
right,
the
course,
people. It's the people. It's the spirit.
Amen, brother. Well, listen, thank you again for giving me some time this evening. I want others to be able to call in. Oh, and one last thing, folks. If you feel a little nervous about calling in, we all feel nervous the first time. Pick up the phone and talk to Doug and Joe. It's a great thing to do. So I highly encourage that, and God bless you both. God keep you both safe and your families, and keep doing the great work, gentlemen.
God bless you too, John. And it was great meeting you in person, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Joe. It's feelings mutual. Good night, guys.
Take care.
Good night. I forgot to tell him the next time he sees Jack Nicholson to never mind. Very interesting. By the way, you'd be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, of the people who do listen to this broadcast in Hollywood, outside of Hollywood. There's some interesting people. I've gotten to know a couple, or not know, I shouldn't say that. I've gotten some interesting emails from Christians in Hollywood, who, in fact, two in particular, very surprising that I'd never, in fact, any given day you turn on the television to, the reruns of sitcoms, and you would immediately see them. And I'm not name dropping, I'm not going to name names, but I guess what I'm saying is, there are people on our side, or people who think like us, that you wouldn't think that would be the case. So don't judge people until you talk to them and perhaps meet them, and it's just interesting. It's just an interesting thing to. It's something I never thought I would ever experience in my lifetime. I don't know.
That too. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Let's go to another call here. Area code 405. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey there. How's it going, guys?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hey, been listening to your show for 3 or 4 months now, and one of the questions I had was, like, on July 4th when W was supposed to come on, I didn't know if you guys were going to reschedule that, or if you're going to be having B and W back on anytime soon.
Yes. Yes, and we'll, believe me, we'll reward everyone's patience with something very, very good, something that y'all be extremely, y'all benefit from. I promise you that. Just we can't announce it ahead of time, but we're working on it.
Oh, I understand. I kind of wondered if that might be the case, because if you announce it, then we may just end up in the same position that we were on the 4th of July.
Yeah, and boy, I'll tell you, I'm missing chunks of my hair from that day. Oh, what a frustrating event.
Blame it on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was. I'll just continue listening. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
All right, my friend. God bless.
Appreciate you too. God bless you. Take care.
Up to you. You too.
All right. Folks, I find myself here. I just have a note to remind people. Canada Free Press. I just want to put in a plug for Canada Free Press. What a wonderful outlet for news. Bookmark that site as well. I know that we have an ad that's getting stale and old, and people don't hear it anymore because we play it we play it every night. But let me just toss a word out there to Canada Free Press. The Judy McLeod is editor, fantastic journalist, and I'm just proud to be associated with Canada Free Press. And watch for some more writings here. It seems like I've been on strike lately, but that's due to other issues unrelated to. Well, it's due to other issues. You're gonna see some things come out in the news that I think you'll find pretty interesting, and of course, just keep tuned into CFP.
All right, we're going to move along to another call here. We're going to go to area code 936. 936, we're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Joe, Mike Boone here in the big city of East Texas. How you
Good
doing,
to hear
bud?
from you.
Good to hear from
great.
you. Yeah, I wish I could say the same. Oh, man. Still no internet access here, but,
what's going on? I mean, no internet access temporarily, or...
I'm broke, dude. I'm just, I'm in the lowest room. And that's okay, because you know what? You know what I would tell Ken? You can have your thermal imaging and ammonia sensors, and all that stuff can be taken away from you in an instant.
Sure.
And that God will show you, what you got to do, and pay attention to Him, and not what you think you're going to do out of your power, because we're powerless.
No, I think that's what he was getting. Knowing Ken, I mean, that's just so there's no misunderstanding. Ken was saying, look, we've got to get out of.
There's no way you're going to protect your family from, 50 caliber fire from a attack helicopter. It ain't gonna happen.
No. But in terms of, we'll say, putting yourself out in the middle of a riotous situation because you failed.
Have they shown you the black helicopters yet? You've seen a black helicopter yet with turn signals on the back of it like a T-bird? It's crazy. I'm here to tell you. No, these things exist, and they're real quiet.
No, we're not going to. Believe me, we have no delusions about being able to fight against that type of an armament. No, not at all. What he's saying is, just be practical in terms of,
Sure. Everybody ought to have a little bit of stuff put up, and so forth, but you can just take things way too far.
Oh, yeah.
I know that out of my personal life, and it has cost me my family, and, hell, I'm not even from this area, and I'm just fascinated with it, so that's what keeps me down here, that and the good-looking women. But, man, guys, the good Lord will show you so much. The good Lord will show you so much. You can't even believe it. And I exist on, nothing. Just on nothing. And have a great time doing it.
Faith.
Faith.
I mean,
I'm serious. If I have a breakdown, there's going to be some good-looking blonde pick me up or something, You just never know. And God is in charge of this world.
Oh, yes. God is in charge.
So if you believe in Him and if you're a witness for Him, that's the key. Don't be out here two-faced about things and, take a stand. That's my message to y'all.
Well, thank you for the call. And in East Texas, stay safe and, and thank you so much.
Doug, good to talk to you, man. I'm glad you got straightened out on 9/11 and everything.
Yeah. Well, no one said I was a mental, a mental.
Mental student. Well, not everybody even got a chance to know what their IQ was,
Well, I got to tell you, in conversation, just so people understand, when I was talking to John B. Wells yesterday, I said how much of a neocon I was and how I fell for everything hook, line, and sinker. And it's, you find yourself in that position. And once you learn or know that the lie is bigger than you've ever imagined, and then you go out and try to convince others, it's like a double tap, if you will. It's, it's like a double whammy. First you realize you've been lied to, and then when you try to convince others, you're looked upon as a pariah, like I believe you're intimating. And, so, we all have to grow up and put the big boy pants on or the big girl skirt on and understand that there's a world out there that's completely contrary to everything that we've been taught. So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you, Doug. You have a great day.
You keep your head up.
Or keep your head down, too, depending on when the firing starts.
All right, let's go to area code 856 next. 856, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Doug. It's Joe at Sheila.
Hey, Sheila.
Hi, honey. How you doing?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. A little while ago, you were talking about, being labeled homophobia. I have I have a Christian singer that was my favorite, and I loved all of his music. I had all of his music, and in fact, everything I had was on DVD. And the first thing I got from him was a thing he did in Botswana with his daughter, a missionary trip. Anyway, for like 3 or 4 years, I wasn't seeing any more of his music. So when I finally got my computer, I went online to his website, and here he had come out and said he was gay. Well, that in itself, broke my heart, because I really loved his music, and it was, it would just bring the Spirit of God out in you. And I was watching him on YouTube, and there was a thing there where he was doing an interview, and I looked at it and I thought, do I want to listen to this or not? Because I wanted to understand how these people can sit in church and claim that Christ accepts them just as they are, and he does. But there's more to it than that. So I got the courage up to listen to him talk, and he named the Samaritan woman at the well. He loved her, and he talked to her and whatnot. And then he mentioned the adulteress, and he would talk about how much he loved her and blah blah blah. And I looked at him, and I was saying to the screen, but Jesus said, "Go and sin no more." That's what they're leaving out, is go and sin no more. Because I hear it time and time again, well, God loves us. Yes, he does. But he hates sin. So for a long time, I could not understand how could these people can sit in church and live the kind of sin they're living. You know what I mean? And
Sheila,
I just found that,
if I may, there's a rationalization that occurs it's a human rationalization, I believe, and I've done this with different things where you rationalize your behavior and think, well, yeah, I'm loved and I'm saved, so I kind of have a get out of jail free card, and this is what Steve preaches against and Pastor Langford preaches against, is it doesn't work that way. If it did work that way, boy, we could go
on doing what we do.
Sure, and it's very uncomfortable. It kind of like John shared the testimony, for example, his testimony, the state that he was in, knowing that he was really kidnapped by something that was not good. So he had to free himself from the demons, of course. So we all have to. We're all, in one way, shape, or form, we've got something, because we're all human. We've got something that constricts us and binds us. But we have to fight. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, he was. My daughter took me to see him on my birthday, and I sat to listen to him, and he still had that gentle and quiet spirit about himself. And they went to a clip of him singing at a church, and it was cold and it was dark, and I had to turn that off because that was not from God. No way. He could sing his music, but that was not coming from God. I mean, the spirit of it was just totally lost in that, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. I had to turn him off. And it broke my heart that, he's done that. I just pray that he wakes up, because he knows too much to just, he knows, I know that he just knows, and it just broke my heart, and hopefully he'll wake up. But anyway, there was 2 commercials that just came out, One of them is called Dating Naked, and the other one is Going to the Beach Naked. Now, these are two series that's coming out. And I didn't think anything at this point would shock me, but...
Dating Naked? Okay.
No,
Dating Naked.
When I was at the hotel...
How does that work?
When I went to Niagara Falls this weekend, I saw a commercial. It was something I think you were referencing, Sheila. It was like... it wasn't Dating Naked, but it was Selling My House Naked, or I don't know, something. It was so crazy. And I looked at my wife, and she said, "What is this?" I said, "I don't know, but this is on cable TV."
No, there. You know, I looked at that, and I'm like, oh, God, he's just going to curse this country, you know. He's just going to... We're going to feel his wrath. It's just unbelievable. They are in our face with it. It's Hollywood. You know, and like you said, there's some people out there.
Yeah, Sheila, even the comic icon Archie is scheduled to die protecting homosexual and advocating gun control in an upcoming issue of Archie. So, you know, even that even the message is even being spread through comics. There's nothing funny. There's nothing funny about this at all.
No, it's in the agenda, and there's no doubt it's in all the cartoons. You know, I got a 4-year-old granddaughter, and I'm afraid to see what the cartoons are about. You know, and I know Sesame Street, they're pushing the agenda. It's coming from every direction.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to just be on our knees all the time, talk to our families, cling to the cross.
There you go.
Cling to the cross.
There you go.
We can do, brother.
Well, Sheila, it was great to hear you.
Well,
sorry for talking over you. We've got this nuisance of a delay, which I apologize for. Sometimes that encroaches in the conversation, but it was great to hear from you, my dear.
Okay. You guys have a good night. Joe, pay attention to what you listen to.
I will. God bless you, Sheila.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye now.
I just got an email, Dating Naked, and there is a show about selling houses that appeal to the nudist, the people in the nudist venue. I mean, how do you even justify that?
I'm looking here on the internet here to see what I want to see. What shows? Let me see. What would I search?
I don't even know. I wouldn't even search
shows.
that.
New cable shows.
You know how far we've come.
Yeah, you're right about
on television.
Don't want to search this.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. But
nude the new trend in reality TV? That's an article.
I mean, think about television in the 50s, where the husband and wife had to have separate beds, and you couldn't show a toilet, for example.
Yeah,
and,
Naked and Dating. That's one of the shows. That might have been the thing I saw, and definitely what Sheila saw. That's wow.
And you know what, folks? One of the things that I'm researching as well is on the periphery of things is, for example, you would think, for example, relatively wholesome shows, for example, the Brady Bunch back in the late 60s and early 70s. You'd think, well, that was a pretty wholesome show. It was a family, the maid, and, you know, well, as you look into that, you find that there is a dark history behind that, and it serves an agenda, and it goes back to the Tavistock Institute. It goes back to psychological warfare programming, and I know there are people listening to this broadcast that are saying, "What are you talking about? You know, the Brady Bunch? Next, you're going to be talking bad about Gilligan's Island, for crying out loud." Well, folks, do the homework on this, and you'll see where there is an agenda. Wow. With that, we've actually expended the time for the show. I want to thank each and every one of you for deliberately tuning us in.
We had a lot of callers that we did not get to. The phone banks are extraordinarily full today. Please call again tomorrow. We'll try and take about half the show tomorrow to take calls also. As
and you know what I'd like to, if you are a police officer and you're listening to this broadcast, we'd like to hear from you as well, given the state of affairs. Not that we won't, not to the exclusion of other callers, but especially police officers, on active police officers today. I'd like to query you about your feelings about how things are going and your plans. So just keep that in mind tomorrow. Open phones.
Till then, God bless. Stay safe with each and every one of you. Hope you have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 p.m.